Hello, and thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. My name is Dr. Sylvia Black, licensed real estate broker with Affordable Homes and Apartments. I'm licensed to preach and I'm ordained as a minister, and I have my master's degree in sacred theological divinity. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You, which airs every Wednesday right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20, Wednesdays 6:30 to 7 p.m., and Saturdays from 12:30 to 1 in the afternoon. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Today I'd like to talk to you on a continued basis of my book, Tenants' Rights versus Slumlords, Win in Housing Court. How to win in housing court. Okay? And basically, I wrote this book out of my own experience as a 7-day administrator, and I'll be explaining to you exactly what that is. And again, I'd like to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. You can hit me up on Facebook, Dr. Sylvia Black. You can hit me up on YouTube at Dr. Sylvia Black or Affordable Homes and Apartments, which I'm licensed real estate broker of Affordable Homes and Apartments. You can hit me up on my YouTube address at Affordable Homes and Apartments. You can hit me up on YouTube at Affordable Homes and Apartments. And I have a website coming soon. So, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Okay, now today we're going to talk on a continued basis. I'm going to cover a few things before I get to the meat of the topic. But today I want to talk basically about tenants associations. How to form a tenants association. Okay, what the reason is why you would need to form a tenants association. Uh, you know, basic things of that nature. Uh, the duties of a tenants association, which we'll probably be getting into sometime later in the, okay, so we're gonna search now, forming, okay, forming, okay, forming a tenants association. Okay, now, but like I said, I'm going to talk about a few different things just before I get to that, forming a tenants association. Okay, and again, thank you for joining me today. Okay, now I talked to you previously about, what to do if your landlord's not making repairs. Okay, I told you that I have sample forms in the back of this book, and this book is available on lulu.com. Okay, I think it's backwards. Is this backwards? Okay, it's available on lulu.com. Okay, and I talked to you about violations, housing code violations. Okay, and what your rights are basically as a tenant, what our rights are. Anybody who's renting an apartment, what our rights are as a tenant. Okay, and you can always go back to my videos on affordable homes and apartments. And I talked about what an unsafe building is. I talked about the different types of violations that exist, Class A, Class B, Class C. Some of them are considered non-hazardous, and some of them are considered immediately hazardous. Okay, and I talked about suing your landlord in court, and I think I touched briefly on an HP action. Okay, now the consequences for withholding rent. Basically, if you just stop paying your rent without getting the judge's permission, after you have contacted the landlord or even before, the request for repairs that are needed and nothing has been done about it, and you just simply stop paying your rent, that's illegal. You cannot just not pay your rent unless the judge gives you permission not to pay the rent. The building, the money, the rent is the lifeblood of the building. So in order for the tenant to be able to fix the building, he's going to need his rent money in order to be able to do that. If you don't want to pay the landlord the rent, then the obvious thing then to do would be to pay it into court. But the bottom line is don't spend the rent because you're going to ultimately have to pay it. You or somebody else is going to have to pay it. Okay, I believe I may have talked about a petition for non-payment. Now, by withholding your rent, you have an opportunity to go to court and speak to the judge. Because when you withhold your rent, now the landlord is going to take you to court for non-payment of rent. Okay, so what you do is you bring the rent with you to court and you present your defense to the judge. Lawyers will be there, legal aid societies will probably be in the vicinity, as well as their lawyer will be there. And they will try to talk to you outside of court. And there's nothing wrong with having a conversation. However, you want to ultimately, before you sign anything, agreeing to anything at all, you want to have the opportunity to talk directly to the judge unless the lawyers agree to your terms. Now, if you work that out, then you don't have to sit there in court and wait for your name to be called. You can work it out, sign the stipulation, and everything will be everything. However, if the landlord does not fulfill his requirement based on that stipulation, then you then will have to bring the landlord to court. Okay, and that's an HP action. If you don't fulfill your part of the bargain, then the landlord can possibly file immediately for uh, a warrant of eviction, which means that you'll have 72 hours to get out. Now, I did briefly, I think I talked about improper service. You're supposed to be served with a 3-day notice first. Then you're supposed to be given the full 3 days in which to come up with the rent or vacate. If after the 3rd day, which does not include weekends or holidays, then the dispossessed should be served at that point. If you go to court and the judge renders the eviction on your behalf, it renders that you have to get out, then you go back to court and file what's called an order to show cause. Anytime you want to communicate with the landlord, you must file an order to show cause and have the judge sign it. But you have to have a reason why you're coming back to court. And this would be the reason why, because I paid the rent to the landlord, or I paid part of the rent to the landlord, and I'm holding the other part, waiting for the landlord to fix the repairs that are needed in my apartment. And the landlord has not fixed the repairs. So I am coming back to court, and I would like to do the repairs myself, or I would like to pay the rent in the court to have the judge enforce the landlord to make the repairs. Okay, so it's a lot of different reasons that you can go to court. Now we know a warrant of eviction is a 72-hour notice. You have 3 days. Okay, now we're going to go into the meat of the okay, like I said, this book, Tenants' Rights, is available on lulu.com. Okay, now tenants association. What is a tenants association? Okay, forming a tenants association. No landlord shall or can interfere with the right of a tenant to form an association, join or participate in a lawful action. Okay, in a lawful action to form a tenants association. If you want to form a tenants association, you have a right to organize. And two heads are better than one, as it's always been said. Okay, now the landlord cannot interfere with your right. If he does, that's called harassment. Okay, you can call the cops on him. That's the way you can get immediate action to have the landlord leave you alone. A lot of times the landlord will not. You'll be surprised at the reasons the landlord will not want you to organize, because he knows that if things sometimes work better in numbers. If you organize a tenants association, now you have a couple of other people that are involved. You have most of the tenants involved. So now he's not just picking on you as an individual tenant. He's picking on all the tenants. He's not just, okay, he can't just bring you to court. In other words, he can say, okay, well, I'm bringing you to court. I'm bringing her to court. I'm bringing him to court. I'm bringing her to court. Okay? But y'all don't know each other. Okay? So as far as he's concerned, he's safe. But when you all get together and you put your heads together and you say, hey, look, now let's talk as a group. Okay? Because you may have knowledge that this person doesn't have. Your occupation, your job that you do may, present some type of knowledge or some kind of information that would help the tenants organize. Now, I wrote this, like I said, I was a 7-year administrator, and a 7-year administrator is a court-appointed building manager. Now, what that means is that the landlord has then, after a series of steps have been taken in which forming a tenants association would be the first step that would actually be needed. Okay. After a series of things have gone on, now a 7A administrator can be one of the tenants that live in the building. Okay, that could be. I would suggest perhaps maybe not the president of the tenants association, but someone else that has some kind of an experience. But basically, you have to take that course that's given. I took it in New York City. It's called the 7A course, and it was given by the I can't remember the name of it, but HPD, Housing Preservation and Development. And I took my course in New York City, and it was a 6-week course, I believe it was. You get a certificate after that. Now that qualifies you to be a 7A administrator. Of course, as a licensed real estate broker, I was much more qualified than a lot of people without any real estate experience at all. Okay, but you have a lot of things that were going on that weren't too kosher. Like the judge had their special kind of person that they would appoint. Okay, a lot of times they didn't want the tenant that lived there to be the 7A administrator. Then they would say, "Oh, you got to have experience." They would automatically assume that you didn't have any experience or whatever. And sometimes, let me tell you, this is the stuff that the judge would appoint. They would have somebody waiting in the wings that they would appoint as a 7A. And that 7A administrator would do the same thing that the landlord did. Suck the blood out of the building and don't do anything for the tenants. So the same thing that you do to the landlord to get him removed from active management of his or her own building is the same action you can take against a 7A administrator. Okay? And I do believe that now the city actually has steps where they are the one that selects the 7A administrator in New York City. They also require you submit a resume. You have to have something that gives you experience. So the city actually is personally involved. They don't leave just up to the judge. They make the decision. If you want to be a 7A, you send your resume in, and we will take a look at your credentials and see if you qualify to become a 7A administrator. Yes, you go through the legal process of having the 7A appointed, but the actual ones that do the appointing is the same ones that give the course. And I think that when I took the course, it was pretty relatively new. So a lot of things was going on that, you know, anyway, tenants' rights versus landlords. Now, there is new hope for tenants in rundown buildings. As a tenant organizer, I have organized tenants of privately owned buildings and encourage tenants to stick together in unity, okay? So that the tenants can work together as one. Bring the building back up to code compliance. After the building is brought back up to code compliance, after having, of course, removed the management or the landlord from active management of his or her own building, okay? And now the tenants can purchase it after the building is brought up to code compliance and all of the violations are corrected. Now the tenants can actually purchase their building as a tenant-owned low-income co-op, which means that you all own shares in a corporation, okay? And that's a great thing because now you have a building that's worth a whole lot more money, and each one of you as a tenant owns a piece of that. Okay, so that's a real good thing right there. When you can say, "Hey, I'm a shareholder, baby." You might even be able to use that on your credit report. You know what I mean? It may even hold some significance in that respect. Okay? Now, before the building can be brought back up to code compliance, the tenants should be organized. Okay? Okay, one issue that should be addressed in the organizational process is to tell each of the tenants that they must learn the importance of paying rent. Okay, just because you are taking the landlord to court, and just because you're suing the landlord, it still does not exempt you from paying the rent. Like I said, the rent is the lifeblood of the building. If the building is to survive, okay, if the building is to be brought up to code compliance, then the rent has to be paid. Either you pay it to the landlord and have him fix it, or you pay it to the courts and have them appoint somebody, or you collectively put your money together and you select a contractor and you hire that person to do the work, supervise it, and what have you. You get receipts, you get bid estimates, everything has to be done in writing. And I can walk you through the process if you need me to come to you so that we can discuss and show you exactly how it's done. But this book that I have here will go into detail. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Tenants' rights versus slumlords win in housing court. Available on lulu.com. Okay. Now, I had approached some tenants who had lived in totally rundown buildings, and the landlord was still collecting the rent on some of these buildings, believe it or not. A lot of these buildings, you would think that the landlord had disappeared. But the landlord was still around collecting rent and was doing nothing for the tenants at all. Garbage was piling up in the hallways. The lobby doors were not self-locking. They were left wide open. The lights were not working in the hallways. Stench were everywhere. Faulty wiring existed throughout the entire building. Broken fire escapes, if there were any fire escapes at all. And it's like they don't consider, a lot of these landlords don't consider that tenants are people. You show these raggedy buildings. They look either nasty from the outside or they're barely fixed up on the inside. And you expect for someone to want to live there. My question to the landlord is, would you want your mama living there? Would you have your daughter living there? Would you live there? That would be my question to them. And I have asked a couple of landlords, these questions and whatnot. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like I said, I'm a licensed real estate broker, and I work for some landlords. And I go around and I rent these apartments, and I'm trying to make my money. But there's a time when, even as a rental agent, you got to say no. You know what I mean? I'm not renting it out. And some of the houses that I've seen, they were in very good condition, outside and in, but to some people, they still look like rat holes. Okay? And then there were some that I looked at that looked like rat holes, but I would still be sort of like compelled to rent them out. And it's just, and then I would be held accountable at one time that I had to make sure that they understood I'm the rental agent. I'm not the landlord. I don't own the building and I don't manage the building. Once I rent you the apartment, now you deal directly with the landlord. I'm just working for the landlord to get the apartments rented out. And our, it's just terrible that these, a lot of landlords, they don't care about us as tenants. And tenants are constant. I know you're a tenant, you have a complaint. And a lot of times you talk to each other, Junebug and Bubblegum, but Junebug and Bubblegum can't do nothing for you. You got to talk to people who can do something about it. And you got to go to City Hall. If that person can't talk to you or they don't give you the answer, do not stop there. Go higher to the next level. If you got to go to the top, if you got to go to the mayor, to the president, if you got to write a letter to the White House, baby, then that's what you got to do. You got to write a letter to the White House, and you got to let them know, look, I'm not putting up with this mess. We are not putting up with this because as a tenants association, you will be fighting in numbers and you will have a lot more respect. Okay? First thing you need to do is to type up a flyer that announces the first meeting and the location and the time of the meeting. Okay? At the meeting, when the tenants show up, you send out a reminder because a lot of tenants, they're pretty much, wash their hands. I'm done. I'm done all I feel like I can do. What am I going to do? You just don't get no rent. So at the meeting, you document all the tenants that show up and you get a history of the building and its current condition from each tenant. Okay, then you find out what the tenants want and tell them what you have to do, what you have to offer. Okay, whoever is doing the organizing. If you don't know how to do it, call me. I'll come and help you organize. Okay, 716-602-7213, or you can hit me up on my email at sblack3001@gmail.com. Okay. Now, to find out what they want, you make sure that you get what the tenants want because you don't want to just run it without finding out what the tenants want and what they need. Okay. Now you take pictures of as many violations as you can, including in the lobby and including in each apartment. And each apartment will have its own file. So you'll take a picture of all the inside of the apartment, and then you'll take a picture of the lobby of that floor, and then you'll go down to the main lobby, and then you'll go around the building to the outside, and you'll take pictures all around the building so that you can document every square inch of that building. And then you might want to get a street view. If there's garbage piled up, get a picture of that. Everything and anything that you can get a picture of that can actually be to your defense, you do that. And my suggestion is to upload it onto the computer. So in case you lose a picture, it'll always be there. You'll never lose it. Okay? Once you find out what the tenants want, like I said, you take pictures. Remember, at least 1/3 of the tenants, whether they're paying rent or not, have to sign a petition in order to be able to fight against the landlord. And I'll talk to you about what the petition is. Now try to hold a meeting in the day and time convenient with most of the tenants. And those who don't show up, send letters again to them for the next meeting and try to hold it frequently and regularly. In the beginning, you might want to hold it once a week so that you can get as many tenants coming. They'll remember it. They'll say, oh, wow, now we can do something. The landlord didn't do anything. We went to court and nothing was done. The judge just said, get out. So now we are going to take action. We are going to do it ourselves now. That's the bottom line. Okay, there is a way to fight. That's why I said don't give up the fight, honey. And we as African Americans, a lot of us, we're subject to discrimination. We're subject to a lot of harassment, more so than non-African Americans are, especially in this racist city that we live in. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is racist or every non-African American is racist or bigot, but there are just a lot of it going on. It's a high number. And in order for us to be able to have some sanctity without going around and just having that humble, passive look, oh, well, I'm just glad to be alive, kind of thing, fight. And there is a constructive way of fighting. We fight our battles in the courtroom and in the boardroom and in the classroom. And okay, we can also fight our battles behind the mic, doing, rapping, doing our, verbalizing and vocalizing our opinion creatively as a poetic venue. There's a lot of ways that we can do it. We can fight our battles in book form. We can write about it like I do here, which I've talked to you about and whatnot. So if you're scared of a book, you know what I mean, then you will not learn very much. The library is an excellent resource of information ever since the internet became available to us. It's such a great tool to use, and it's a cinch not to be able to take advantage of it because the computer's access and use is free. Okay? And the libraries are open at all hours. Saturdays, they used to be open Sundays during the winter, but Monday through Saturday, all the way from 8 a.m. all the way down to 9 p.m. in the evening. Throughout the entire week, different libraries have different hours. There used to be one that was open till 10 at night, and I think they changed that one. Now, at the meeting, you're going to nominate a tenants association head. This could be temporary, okay? And it could be, you could say, well, we're going to volunteer you now, and then we're going to decide on a permanent one later. Okay, so you're going to, a head, that would be the president of the tenants association. Now, I'm a 7A, so, I don't need to be a part of the 7A tenants association because I don't live there. Okay, now you're going to select volunteers. Whoever wants to volunteer, you enlist. Sign them up regardless of their experience. Just make sure that they have the time to invest. Then there needs to be, this is the structure of a tenants association. President of the tenants association, vice president, you're probably going to need that in the beginning because the vice president and the president are both going to need to be together talking. They're going to be the head of it, but they're not going to be the ones that make the decisions. It's going to be run just like the president has to get his, he has to get his, what do you call it, the Congress to approve a bill. And this is the way it is for a tenants association. The president and the vice president cannot make the decision. They have to get the approval of the rest of the tenants association. It has to be at least 1/3 of the tenants that have to vote in favor of whatever it is that you're trying to do in order for it to be effective. Okay, so now you have the president, the vice president, the assistant secretary, the treasurer, and the assistant treasurer. You always need, because the two of you need to work together. You need to have two people, because a lot of times you probably won't know very much of what you're doing in the beginning. Now, the city, at its discretion, can sell the building to the tenants association right away without having to wait through what's called a purchase money mortgage after the landlord has been removed from the active management of the building. Now, when the landlord completely abandons the property, it now belongs to the city. Within 2 years, the owner may or may not be able to reclaim his property and regain active management of his building, even after foreclosure proceeding has begun. If a landlord does not come back to his building within 2 years and try to reclaim it, it goes into what's called in rem, and I'll talk to you about what that means. Now, when buildings and neighborhoods become abandoned, crime rates increase, buildings deteriorate, banks, stores, and merchants close up because they're not making any money and move to other neighborhoods. Sanitation services decrease, and people are virtually afraid to pass through their own neighborhood. So people move out. And then you have entire neighborhoods that are abandoned. Now, reasons you should form a tenants association, and we'll probably continue this next week. There are, among other reasons, why it is of the utmost importance that tenants must organize and stay organized. And this is what I'm talking about, tenants' rights versus slumlords, Winning Housing Court, available on Lulu.com, authored by yours truly, Sylvia Black, licensed real estate broker of affordable homes and apartments. Okay? Now, these reasons are among: to obtain heat and hot water, to remove the violations, basically. And we can, to get the city involved. You might want to get the city involved. Now, if the condition of the lobby are not feasible to hold a meeting space, perhaps you can hold it in the hallway or in the park if you decide you go in the park. You don't even have to hold it in the building. Maybe somebody's apartment, but I don't know if anybody's going to agree to that. Maybe if there's a vacant apartment, you can go in there. Maybe in the hallway, or if there's a meeting room, you can go in there. Okay, now there's no formal training or license required to organize a tenant, but it helps to be a licensed broker, property management, and it also helps to take that course as a 7A administrator. Every body that wants to be that's going to be elected, president, from the president, the secretary, the treasurer, and the vice president, should take the 7A course. It's a free course. You don't have to pay a dime for it, so it would be essential for you not to take it. Okay, a 7A administrator gets a small percentage of the total collected rent roll. Okay, and then of course, as a real estate broker, for each apartment that you rent out, you get that month rent as commission. Now, if the tenants don't pay their rent, this reduces your percentage earned and lessens your chance of getting the building up to code compliance. So tenants have to know the importance of paying rent, or at least not spending it. If you want, you're going to end up opening up a bank account, and we're going to talk about that. Okay. Now, what you'll do is, okay, so next week we're going to talk about a rent strike, how to go on a rent strike, okay? And then we're going to talk about how to go on a rent strike next week. This week we were talking about how to form a tenants association. And a rent strike is actually part of one of the effective reasons of forming a tenants association, because now you're making demands on the landlord. Nobody's going to pay you rent. Okay, you may be able to pick on Joe Blow, Mr. Fernandez, Ms. Jones, Mr. Gabriel. All 5 of those tenants individually may come and whatnot, and they're scared because they don't know what's going on. But collectively, as a unit, now you're fighting together. Okay, so you have force in numbers. Okay, and a lot of times that's what you need. I've seen stuff I watch on YouTube, and I see these tenants, they meet up with the landlord, and the landlord walks away. The landlord think that they got it made. You don't think that that building can be taken away? Yes, it can be, and I'm telling you it's evidence because I've been there. I'm a 7A administrator, and I know how it works. Okay? The landlord can be removed legally from active management of his own building. Okay? And the tenants can take over the building. With the help of the city, bring it up to code compliance, and now the tenants can own the building. Okay? The landlord says, you need to get this across to your landlord and let him know what's going down. Anyway. I want to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. You can view this on my YouTube address at Affordable Homes and Apartments. Anytime you choose, you can hit me up on Facebook, Affordable Homes and Apartments. Okay, I'm putting my company on mostly all of the social media networks out there as possible. And again, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you got something out of it. And like I said, the rent strike, we'll be talking basically about now everybody's going to hold the rent. Nobody's going to pay any rent at all. So now the landlord is really going to have a fight on his hands now in order for him to be able to collect some rent. Okay? If he's got to pay his mortgage, he might have to get a job. Okay, so I want to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You, and ask you to join me next week right here. I'm talking about my book.